Dave Wood, Woodsy, welcome to my podcast.
Woodsy.
Are you still called Woodsy?
Yeah, Woody. Most people call me Woody. Actually, my old man's name, Mike Wood, everyone calls him Woody, but that's just been now passed down to me. So
Right.
Either Dave or Woody.
It's great to have you on the podcast. This is the first time, we met for the first time maybe like 10 minutes ago. You pulled into the garage here at PodLab, big white van, window down. I think it was AC/DC, maybe Back in Black that I heard screaming out. And I thought, I'm going to gel with this guy.
Yeah, well, I was telling you I was stuck in the traffic for like an hour on the Northwestern Motorway. And so I was just playing my music, playing my playlist the whole way, and I enjoyed that.
What was it? Was it Akadaka?
That song, yeah, it was AC/DC, Back in Black. But, yeah, 70s, 80s. But, yeah, I found that when I jumped on the Northwestern Motorway, my mind was just working overtime, thinking about the business and coming here to do the podcast and then being stuck in the traffic. And you put your music on and it's just, you get in that rhythm and it's like, it's actually very relaxing.
But even in bumper to bumper traffic, are you still calm under the pressure?
It's so interesting, like, because I'm working in, I have a workshop, 2-day workshop that's called Calm Under Pressure. Big things I can handle big things. Working for 13, 14 years and as an intensive care paramedic, you're confronted with the gnarliest stuff you could conjure up in your head is you're repeatedly going to that. Those are, often big things. It's like little things that probably agitate me more. But I've learned to, like in the traffic today, yeah, maybe back in the day I would have been uptight and agitated. But like I said, I just turn the music on, do a bit of breathing and relax because I don't want to give that my energy. Like, especially running a business, my energy is so important. And so having that self-awareness and self-regulation to be like, hey, what's the point? It's the same thing as like, I used to be that person that someone pull in front of me in the traffic. I was very reactive for a long time. I had like a lot of anger. Someone would pull in front of me in the traffic and I would get all uptight. But now I can't even imagine that, man. I literally look back and I cannot imagine letting that rattle me.
I was exactly the same, and I've tried to do some sort of self-examination or self-reflection, whatever you want to call it, to figure out why. And I wonder if it was like times in my life where I had anger issues, if it was like mental health related. You know what I mean? Like I was maybe depressed and I was just like projecting it onto other people. But yeah, now nothing phases me. If someone's rude to me in traffic now, I almost have like a empathetic point of view where I think, fuck, they must have some serious shit going on in their lives.
It brings about, well, first thing is, I think for a lot of people, anger is a form of anxiety. Like anxiety is built up tension. How do you get rid of that? It comes out in lots of different ways. For me, I know now looking back that anger that I was carrying was anxiety. Things that I'd gone through in life that I didn't have the skills to deal with, so I just shoved it right back there. But it came out in all sorts of ways, and anger was one of them. And then the other part of like what you're talking about there is I have my whole thing is now is I want to be respectful and kind to everybody, right? Even if someone's coming at me with something, I'm not going to react. I'm going to be like, why is that? We never know what, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know and running this workshop, what you start learning is that some people are going through some gnarly stuff, man, and you just can't see it. I get people in the workshop come up to me at the end of the workshop and tell me what they're going through, and it's full on, but I can't see that. We're often very good at masking it. And so I just think, fuck, you hear it all the time, just be kind to people, but it's not even that hard.
Yeah, it's so true. You never know what the weight anyone is carrying, or it might not even be anything. Yeah, it could be grief or something like that, but you just don't know what someone's going through. So compassion's a good way to go.
Yeah, and you only have to look at it from a practical standpoint. We all go through something. That's like the part of life, man, is we all go through the fire, right? And it's just, we go through that fire at different times in our lives. And so the other thing is, when a lot of these patterns or behaviors that people are exhibiting is because they don't know how to deal with what they've been through. And that is like that outward reflection, whether it be, like what we talked about, anger or confrontation or whatever it might be. And it's just understanding that often just taking a step back and meeting that person with calm and understanding can it's the way to go.
So I thought this podcast today, a bit of thought goes into how we structure it. So I thought the first half could be what you've learned and how people listening to this or watching this can apply these tools, tricks, tips, techniques, whatever you want to call them, into their own life. And then the second bit will dig into the Dave Wood story. Who is Dave Wood before, and what led you to this come under pressure thing? But first of all, what is integrated training, and what is come under pressure, and what is Woody's movement workshop? are they all the same thing? They're all related?
My company is called Integrated Training. Actually, the trade name is WMW Integrated Training. But when I first started this business going back 6-7 years ago, I was working as an intensive care paramedic full time, and I'd been through chronic pain. And as part of that, getting myself out of chronic pain was about learning more about my body, about what was going on. And that started for me a deep dive into better understanding my own physical and mental state. And as part of that, I went deep into strength and conditioning, deep into trigger point myofascial release, deep into anti-inflammatory food, sleep hygiene. So I went and breathing as well. And going deep into all of these things, I became really interested about human health and performance. And I already had that background in health science. And so I started, as I was working full-time on the ambulance, I started seeing clients who were also dealing with pain and muscle imbalance. And I started building a little bit of a client base. And then it got to the point where I was like, I built a big enough client base that I could go part-time on the ambulance and work part-time in my business, which was basically just a shed in my backyard. And I called my business Woody's Movement Workshop. That's where it started. And, as the business evolved, I went down a whole different avenue, which is mental skill development. I became very interested initially in the clients that I was working with. I was seeing a lot of imbalance, for example, in their breathing, secondary to stress and I guess lack of self-awareness and self-regulation. And so I started working in that space of actually breathing development as a tool for mental skill development. And then it's just, I guess, elaborated and grown from there. And then changed the business to integrated training, but everyone still calls it Woody's Movement Workshop.
And so what's Calm Under Pressure? Calm Under Pressure is like a small micro workshop that you do that comes under integrated training?
Yeah, Calm Under Pressure. So working in the ambulance, in the health sector, I became frustrated with how we were dealing with mental health. And working in the health sector, you can see, you're living in it. You can see the flaws, and rather than I was always like, man, I can either just, moan about this or I can do something about it. And so I was like, man, I'm going to start my own workshop around mental skill development. I'm going to call it Calm Under Pressure, the skills of stress. And my challenge was, I guess the challenge that I set for myself was I'm going to make the best mental skill development workshop in the world. And I'm going to bring people in and I'm going to take them through two days, a transformative 2 days, where we teach them the knowledge, the skills, and the practical applications of mental skill development. It's a very transformative workshop, and it delves deep into your own subconscious patterns of behavior. So it's about taking a step back, getting the mental clarity to be able to put your thumb on some of your own patterns of behavior that are holding you back. People hold these patterns their entire lives. The beautiful thing about being a human being is we can change, but you've got to identify the pattern, right? How do we create a new pattern and then train and ingrain that pattern? And we use mindset themes to be able to do that. So basically developing your mindset, and then you train a new pattern that becomes the subconscious or hardwired pattern of behavior. It's not that difficult. Well, change is difficult because we tend to tether our identity to these patterns of behavior. So that's one part of the workshop. But I think that a key thing because we all talk about it's about the mental game. It's 90% mental, 10% physical. It's not. It's 100% physical and 100% mental, and we have to invest in both. And the mind and the body are not separate. If you are psychologically agitated, if you have a thought come in that stimulates thinking, you tie emotion to it, and that thought is negative and that thinking is negative, it will have a physiological effect in that it will activate your body's stress response. You will get a release of adrenaline. Adrenaline increases your heart rate, increases your blood pressure. You're now in a physiologically stressed state based on what's going on up here. So they're not separate. And it's about getting people to understand that and giving them really simple, easy skills that can be applied in the heat of the moment, or, under stress and pressure to give you more control. But it's also about getting people to understand that you actually have to train to be calm under pressure. Yeah.
So, it feels like how long has it been going now? 3 years, 4 years?
I'm terrible with time. I honestly, I was thinking the other day, we've been doing this workshop for a couple of years, and then my girlfriend said, no, you've been doing it for 4 years. So, 4 years, I think we've been. And
it feels like there's this real sort of like buzz or hype or hum around it. Maybe that's a result of some of the high performance you've had on it, who we'll get into. But so when someone comes along to a Calm Under Pressure weekend workshop, what happens? Run us through it.
Yeah, so a big part of our workshop is about being in nature. And so we run this workshop out at Piha Beach on the west coast of New Zealand, which is this crazy melting pot of energy. You got the Waitakere Ranges, you got the black iron sand, which is, been deposited along the shores millions of years ago from volcanic activity in Taranaki. And then you've got the Tasman Sea. I've been all over the world. The Tasman Sea is one of the wildest oceans, and that coast is, it's just...
Well, there's even a reality show, Piha Rescue.
Yeah, yeah. And it's this, but I don't know, like getting people in that environment and getting them to understand that you can tap into that energy is a very powerful thing, especially when you're getting people that are turned up who are at a point in their lives where they've tried a bunch of things and they're looking for answers. And often the answers are right in front of us, and reconnecting with nature is such an important part of balancing this entire system. And so we teach them that. That's the first thing we do in the morning, and then we get in nature. We take them, we run the sand dunes, we get up into the bush, we jump in the ocean. And I tell you what, it takes about 20, 30 minutes of being in nature to just strip away all the noise up here. And that's when we get them sharing. We get them in a group and we get them sharing. And people want to talk, man. We get a lot of guys in our workshop, and people think that guys don't want to talk. They want to talk. You just got to create the right environment. And so in the first morning of the Calm Under Pressure workshop, we start bringing in these important themes around how to better control your physical and mental state, and what that looks like. And then we test them. We get them to run the dunes. And, from the outside looking in, it's just people running up and down the dunes, but we give them very specific things to work on when they are under pressure or when it becomes really uncomfortable in the sand dune. And that's about being able to control the thoughts that are coming in. If you think about, thoughts and thinking are different. A thought comes in. If you react on that thought, you start thinking, you tie emotion to it, that dictates action and outcome. So it becomes very important to be able to regulate or control your thoughts when you're under pressure. And there's only one stress response. So the same stress response that's activated when you're under the pump in the sand dune is the same stress response as when you're getting in the ice bath at the end of the first day, is the same stress response as when you're going to talk in front of a group of people or someone pulls in front of you in the traffic in the car. And you can get very good at controlling at training a pattern of control under stress. And that's what we do in the first morning of this workshop. And then, as part of that, they'll end up later on in the classroom, and we're talking about, even if I ask you, culturally, what is our perception of stress? Do we think stress is good or bad? Like if you go and Google stress.
Oh, it's all bad.
It's all bad. Stress is just your body's natural response to threat, challenge, and demand. That's all it is. And if you think about how you create a robust, strong body, you put yourself in stressful situations. You go and exercise. You go and lift weights. Every body system needs stress to create robustness. Stress is not bad. And this is what we teach on the workshop and with all of my clients. Stress is not the problem. The problem is the absence of disciplined, intermittent recovery. And if you don't get that right and you're burning it in the red all the time, that's where we start to experience signs and symptoms of chronic stress.
What's the talking thing that you're talking about early on? So is it so like a vulnerability exchange, or what is that? When you said you got everyone and they get talking. Why do you do that fairly early on? It would make sense, wouldn't it, to do it towards the end when everyone sort of knows each other and there's a bit of a connection? Because
sharing is so important, man. We have all these things going on with us, and we're so scared to share it because it makes you vulnerable, right? Or we think it's the stuff that we're experiencing is a weakness. And when you get in a circle and you go around and share, I don't know, maybe one of your weaknesses or something that you're struggling with, everyone's sitting there is going, oh, I do that. I experience that. The three things that we fear most: fear of failure, fear of letting people down, and fear of what other people might think. And those three fears hold us back our entire lives. Fear of failure. If you think about these kids that are growing up now in New Zealand, man, like the athletes have a lot of the, these athletes, you know, they have so many of the important things we can learn about mental health in New Zealand, because what happens when an athlete loses?
Oh, we come down on them.
Yeah.
Well, the media does, or some idiots on social media.
Berate them, we pull them down. And so these young kids are looking at that. Oh, when you fail, this is what happens. Well, subconsciously, this creates a pattern of, I don't want to expose myself to challenge, because if I fail, this is what happens. And so we breed this culture of fear of failure. And you have fear of failure. I have fear of failure. We all have fear of failure. You wouldn't be human if you didn't. What I've learned, one of the key things I've learned in terms of my own self-development and personal growth and investing into all of the stuff, is that we all experience anxiety. We all experience fear, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. I used to think that stuff, you had to push it away. Now I understand that you embrace it. They're not bad. It's what you do with it that matters. You know, the thought, you bring it in, you change your language, you shift your perspective, you respond using your creative mind. But I've had to learn all this stuff. I didn't have those skills when I was a kid. I went through stuff when I was a kid that I didn't have the skills to deal with, so I just chucked it all in the back and I ran away from it. But the problem is that we talked about it starts coming out in all these patterns of behaviour, and then we tether that to our identity, and the idea of change is very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, out of all the stuff you said there, one thing that struck a chord with me is the fear of what other people think. And I think for me, for a large part of my life, that's something that held me back. And it's only been quite liberating, and only in the recent sort of like past maybe 5 years that you realise other people aren't thinking about you as much as what you think they are. Everyone is so inward thinking, right? So, and it's quite a liberating thought when you realise that.
Yeah.
People are not thinking about you as much as what you think they are.
Well, people are judging you.
Yeah.
And you know, I tell you, it's that whole thing of surround yourself by the right people, right? And that's been a big thing for me is, you know, my mates, my family, the close people around me, they're the people that really matter. And if you put yourself out there, like you've had to put yourself out there, you've had to create this podcast, you know, and that brings about its own challenge, because people are going to say stuff. And some people are going to like it, some people aren't. And you're reading that stuff. And so if you know, and that's just some random person who's making a comment. And if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to get, you know, you're going to get pushed down, and there's going to be people that are going to say stuff about you and all the rest of it. None of it really matters, does it?
No,
but it affects us. It affects us. And if it didn't affect you, then you wouldn't be human. But it's what you do with it. All of the stuff is what you do with it. And, you know, what you're talking about is as you've got older and you've experienced all this stuff, you've worked it out as you've gone along. Yeah,
but it takes a while. It takes a while to get to that level of comfort in yourself.
Yeah, and I don't think you're never perfect at it. That's the thing. There's always that stuff that comes in that affects you that shouldn't. And again, that's just human, man.
But also, if one of your haters or detractors says like, oh, fucking Dave's doing this calm under pressure thing, won't work, I give it 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you buy into that and you cave after 6 months, then they go, oh, I knew it. So the best thing you can do to flip them the middle finger and to make yourself feel good is to push through and say, fuck you, and make it a success.
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do is not focus on anyone else, but focus on yourself. And here's the important thing, Dom, is like, if you have a clear purpose and you have a clear vision and you have clear values and you have set goals, it doesn't matter what gets in your way. You either push through it or go around it. But a lot of people, that's like mental skill 101, values, vision, purpose, goal setting. We often just hear that stuff and we're like, oh yeah, but when you actually get it out of your head and write it down and you've established your values, you know, your vision, your goals, your purpose, that's like the guy wise. That's the thing that keeps you on track, and it makes a massive difference, man. And I didn't do this stuff until probably about 5 years ago, write out my values and my purpose and my vision and my goals. And it has just been a game changer, man, because all that stuff on the periphery just becomes white noise.
Yeah, what are they in terms of your values, and what are the like cornerstones?
Well, I tell you, one of my interesting values is selfish. I'm selfish. That's one of my values. And
Sounds like a controversial one.
yeah, well, again, we have these words, right? And we tie a negative connotation to these words. What's the opposite of being selfish? It's people-pleasing. And when you're selfish and you invest in yourself ahead of everyone else, your physical and mental health, and you put that ahead of everyone else, what happens is that you're way more robust and you're way more capable to help other people. And life is about helping other people, right? So this idea of being selfish is like, oh, it's all about you. No, it's not. It's about investing in me so I can help the people around me. So I have, one of my values is courage. The courage to try. Even when I'm lacking confidence, it's the courage to put myself there. Even when I don't feel ready, when I have apprehension, tension, overwhelm, anxiety, the courage to put myself in the fire, because that's where all the learning happens. Like I remember back to giving my first keynote talk. It was in front of like 300-400 people, and for weeks beforehand, man, I was so overwhelmed by stress and pressure. It was the fear of the unknown, the fear of failing. I even visualized myself getting up there and fucking it all up. And, even before I went up to talk, there was a guy that came out, and he was a neuroscientist from Australia, and I watched his talk. Can you imagine what I might have been thinking?
Yeah.
His presentation's way better than mine. Who am I? I'm Dave from Piha. This is a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
And I'm just in my head in this moment, right? And I use the skills, right, to be able to get up there and smash it. But I've lost my train of thought. But it is like that whole courage to try, man, just to put yourself out there, even when you're feeling all that stuff. And now, having done lots of keynotes since there, I'm searching for that same feeling. I want that same challenge and that same fear, apprehension, tension. That's what I want, because that's where all the growth happens. You have the courage to try, and if you keep putting yourself out there despite failure, you become competent, and it's the competence that leads to confidence. Confidence is a skill you can train. When I go into these situations, I don't look for a feeling of confidence. I understand that what I'm trying to do is just put myself there, feel uncomfortable, and keep going back there, and over time I create that competence, which leads to confidence.
Yeah, and I suppose your two sort of previous careers have led you to this, and we'll get to that later. But through your 20s, you were like a lifeguard around the world.
Yeah.
And through your 30s, as you've alluded to, an intensive care paramedic. What sort of person comes to like come under pressure? I feel like the people that really, 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 really need it the most probably wouldn't come. You know what I mean? Because of fear or whatever. I feel like that people that come, would they be sort of A types?
The people that come on the workshop, fortunately, tend to be really cool, high-performing people. So whether that be that they are a business owner or a mum or a dad or an athlete, but they tend to be people that are motivated to invest in their physical and mental health. And that's the type of person we want. And we don't, we take anybody, right? But you got to be there for the right reasons. And I think we tend to get people that are on this journey, and maybe they've tried a bunch of things that haven't worked for whatever reason, and they're searching for the next thing, and then they come across this workshop, and it's like, well, 2 days of investing in mental skill development, I'll do that.
Yeah, it's easy. It's very quick in terms of like an investment of time, isn't it? And you've had some incredible. Let's drop a few names here. Like from the UFC, you've had Israel Adesanya, Kai Kara France. Who else? Who else from the UFC?
A bunch of the UFC boys. They do our recovery training, mental skill development training during the fight camps. But I work with athletes across, golf players, rugby league, rugby, football, tennis.
Peter Burling from Team NZ, Paul Cole from one of the world's best squash players.
Yeah, and
what are they looking for when they reach out to you?
They're looking for. I think a lot of the work that I am doing is not so much in the systems that these athletes are training in, and so they're looking right on the outskirts, maybe. Right, how do we get that 1% better? And yeah, I think they look into it and they're intrigued by what is this. But at the end of the day, it's actually very basic. The work that I do is very, very basic. I like to say it's simple, but it's not easy. And mental skill development should be simple, because the moments when you have to apply this stuff can be the difference between winning and losing. And it's often when you're cognitively overloaded, you're physically under the pump, and you need to be able to pull on things that give you more physical and mental control in the heat of the moment. So they should be simple, but they have to be practiced every day. I like to, this is like a huge part of this is meditation. I don't use the word meditation. I talk about work that improves your focus, your energy control, productivity, learn more about the condition of your body and mind. But yeah, we work with athletes across all sports, and but I don't like. I get just as much out of working with the guy down the road who's dealing with stress and pressure and comes to me with a challenge. So yeah,
but all those high performers that we mentioned from different sports, like, is there any sort of one or two or even three things that you can see they each have in common?
Yeah, man, this has been the great thing, like, because I feel sometimes I'm like, far out, I'm learning more from these guys than they are from me. And I think what I see in the athletes that are performing at a really high level is unwavering self-belief. Even in the face of failure and setback, it's that unwavering self-belief, and it's a curiosity. You have to have, curiosity is one of the hallmarks of peak performance. And if these athletes end up in front of me, they're curious. They want to know about this stuff, and I think that's what makes them so great. Those people that are operating at a really high level, and then they're open to the things that I am bringing, which is things like reconnecting with nature, meditation, breathing development. A lot of these athletes aren't even training their respiratory system. So we like to break the body system down into like really 6 body systems that are integral for performance. There's 11 body systems in total, and one of those body systems is the breathing system. So if you ask yourself, how much time, energy, and focus am I putting into developing my breathing capacity, strengthening my diaphragm, getting good breathing mechanics, good rate control, being able to use my breathing to elicit a calm state, because your breathing is indirectly tethered to your nervous system. When you slow your breathing down, prolong the exhale, you create more calming effect in your nervous system. You can apply that in really dynamic situations. And then the other part of the breathing training is matching the intensity of your breathing to the intensity of the exercise, which has a huge effect in terms of endurance and mental focus. So I like to ask them, how much time and energy are you putting into the system? Because they often come to me and they're like, I want the 1%. And most of them aren't training the system. So there's much more, you're leaving much more than 1% on the table.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing about the breathing, it is tethered to every single emotional state. So if you go into a situation, you are feeling fear, apprehension, tension, anxiety, your breathing will reflect that. In that, your breathing will be faster, it will be upper chest, and it will be shallow. By having the self-awareness to identify that and take conscious control of it, you are doing the opposite of your body's stress response. You are sending very clear signals from your body to your brain that you are in control. And so, man, it's this probably gone off on a tangent here around the breathing stuff, but this is the work that we're doing. And when I got into this, I was like, all of these athletes, because I come from a sporting performance background. My background is in, like you said, surf lifesaving, 13, 14 years as an intensive care paramedic, being exposed to like constant stress and pressure and having to like, make clinical decisions under pressure. And I'm bringing that learning over into this environment. And when I came into sporting performance, I thought all this stuff was like, this was like 101. Breathing development, meditation, sleep hygiene, all this stuff. And then I realized, holy man, this is like a lot of the stuff isn't, a lot of these athletes are building on top of unstable foundations, and they're getting right to the top based on just pushing. But if you don't have good foundations, you get to the top and the cracks start appearing. And then the idea of going back and getting this stuff right, self-awareness, self-regulation, stress control, getting a better understanding of what's going on up here isn't on the radar. It's like, right, how do we get better? We push more. Problem is that's what's kind of Yeah.
Well, I reckon with this podcast, there'll be two sorts of people. There'll be the very, very slim, pointy end that'll be like, fuck, this sounds amazing. I got to look into Calm Under Pressure. And maybe they'll follow through and come to one of your workshops. Then there'll be the majority of people that may like the sound of it, but they won't do anything about it. But what are some stuff that listeners or viewers to this can do immediately to help themselves? You know, I say if Calm Under Pressure is like a 1% or a 5%, what are some like bigger chunks of the pie that they can do immediately?
Take radical ownership of your own physical and mental health and don't rely on anyone else. We need the specialists, we need the doctors, we need all these people, but never at the expense of taking radical ownership of your own physical and mental health and investing in it every day. This is the vehicle that's got to get you through hard times. So what happens is if you don't look after this thing, if you don't invest into it, when you go through the hard times, this is what you reflect back on. And if this isn't healthy, that's where people get lost.
What's radical ownership?
Radical ownership is radical ownership for me is exactly what I said, not relying on anyone else, understanding that we need people around us to support us, but not relying on that and investing back into your physical and mental health as a priority. I like to explain it as, imagine if you had one car to last a lifetime, how much you'd look after that car. You'd keep the tyres pumped up, you'd keep it waxed and polished, you'd know everything about the engine. Well, you only have one body to last a lifetime. And what I saw in the ambulance service that really shocked me into action was people that were trapped in their bodies for the last 20, 30, 40 years of their lives because they hadn't looked after the thing. So yeah, that's taking radical ownership for me is just doing the work, like, and understanding that and it's not even that difficult, you know. It's just doing the small things every day, like
like eating better, exercising.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you know, the physical side of it, exercising. We know that like exercise has such a profound effect on your mental health. You know, getting in nature, having a connection with nature is so important, man. And we're designed to be in nature all the time, you know, and that's being in nature sets our circadian rhythm. It balances our nervous system. It creates mental clarity. All the good stuff's there. But I talk a lot about reconnecting with nature. And a big part of that for me is I want to raise the consciousness around looking after that thing. And when you have a relationship, a deep connection with nature, you start being much more aware about looking after it. Because if we mess that thing up, we're gone.
Thanks for that. That's such a boring answer. I was I don't know. I was thinking it was going to be like ice baths or meditation or box breathing or something like that. But well, yeah, it's very simple, isn't it?
It is.
And the example you use about a car is a very good one because I think a lot of people, maybe men in particular, I don't know, probably treat their car better than what they do their own body in terms of regular servicing and things like that.
Yeah. Well, you said there it's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy, and it's not easy because we're so busy. And we sacrifice our own physical, mental health all the time, and we're burning it in the red. You know.
How so? How do you mean?
Well, you think about when we talk about stress. Don't think of high level stress. Just think of the busyness of your life. You've got to get up in the morning. You got to get in the car. You got to sit in traffic. You got to go to work. You got to meet deadlines. You got financial stress, psychosocial stress, physical stress, mental stress, the chemical load of food. We're not designed to be doing what we're doing nowadays. Our brains haven't evolved much in 5,000-6,000 years. We're still very primal, right? And it's this constant busyness and the stimulus, even if you think about the phone, the constant stimulus, the multitasking, it's cognitively overloaded, and it's having all of these knock-on effects that I think a lot of people aren't able to draw the dots. And part of this whole thing, I think, is being able to stand back, and I think it's all, first of all, it's realizing that we're actually addicted to stress. Because you think about in your day, when you find a quiet space in your day, what do you do?
I don't know. Pick up my phone.
There you go. You pick up the phone because your brain is craving more stimulus. The brain just recognizes patterns. You know, and if the pattern is to be burning it in the red all the time, adrenaline's addictive. And don't think of high level stress. So when back when you're a kid and you find a quiet space, what did you do? You allowed your mind to wander off, and you'd come up with an idea, and you'd bring that idea, and you'd use the creative part of your brain to come up with a game or whatever. Nowadays, we don't, that void that we have, that quiet pace, we fill it with more stimulus. And then in the evenings, what are we doing? When our bodies are supposed to be slowing down and the pineal gland is supposed to be releasing melatonin, we are putting more stimulus into our brains, and that is activating your body's stress response, and that is adrenaline release from your adrenal glands. So we're going, 180 degrees against how we're designed to sync in with our, natural 24-hour cycle. And it's a massive problem, man. Like I was out checking my mail the other day, and I just looked down the road, and there's this kid that had jumped off the bus, and he was walking up the road. I was watching him looking at his phone. He walked into the back of a parked car, and it's just like, I'm so glad I grew up in a time where we didn't have phones, and we were like, growing up out at Piha, man, we were free range kids. We were in the bush, we were in the surf, and we never had that, constantly being on the phone. But even myself, I find that like I have to have really strict rules and regulations around that thing, because it can become just an extension of your arm.
I'm very guilty of that. I know I've got an incredibly toxic relationship with technology. One thing that's maybe worth highlighting, which I really like about you, is you're no monk yourself. Like last night we were messaging each other, and it was Monday night, and you were having a whiskey at home. So you're not one of these people that's just doing all this wholesome stuff and saying live a Spartan lifestyle. Like you do have good balance in your life.
Oh man.
You eat some shit food as well?
Man, I tell you what, this is where when we get into like holistic health and self-betterment and personal growth, we tend to think that it's, you have to eat healthy and you have to exercise every day and you've got to be meditating, and it's just not the reality. The reality is, like, even for myself, I'm sometimes I just burn it in the red for a couple of weeks because I'm busy in the business and I eat shit food, and I'm like, I fall away from my, my routines, but it doesn't need to be perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to get the balance right between stress and recovery, the red and the blue. The way that life's designed now is that we spend much more time in the red, but that's why these active recovery rituals that I have in my day are so important, because they improve your stress tolerance, and they improve your energy, and they help you, especially when you're going through the hard times, to be able to fall back on a toolbox that you have to be able to balance that stress with the recovery. But yeah, man, I'm not far out. I love having a beer. I love partying. That's I grew up in that environment.
Is it like an 80-20 rule for you? A 90-10 rule?
No, it's nothing like that. It's just live life and enjoy yourself, expose yourself to challenge, and most of the time eat healthy food, and do a little bit of meditation and exercise. And this isn't. It doesn't have to be like. It's just enjoyable, right? This is all this stuff is like, it doesn't. If we create too much, I have to do this and I have to do that. It's not sustainable. Yeah,
I think it starts to feel too hard for some people. If you listen to like a Huberman podcast or Dr. Peter Attia, and it just feels too hard. It's like, I need to cut everything out. It's too hard to get from where I am to where they expect me to be. But yeah, what you're suggesting seems very achievable.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll give you an example. Like I do strength and conditioning every day, but I'm not in the gym for 45 minutes. I do like 20 minutes. And some days I'm really busy. I just do one exercise. I'll just do walking lunges. Take me 5 minutes. But it keeps me in that routine. And then I love having a pie. So what? I love having a beer. But predominantly I eat food that's because I understand that the chemical load of the food that I'm putting, the digestive system is the body system that uses the most amount of energy. So if I'm shoveling crap into my mouth, it's going to get from my mouth through my esophagus, my stomach, my large intestine, small intestine, and out my ass. It's going to use a lot of energy if I'm just shoveling shit in there. And so I understand that, like, if I want to have good energy, I better put good food on. I mean, that's just like everyone understands that. But yeah, it's just, I do think that people feel like everything, if they're going to do this stuff, it's got to be perfect. And what I'm telling them is it does not need to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And this whole thing around radical ownership and investing back into your physical and mental health is a lifelong journey. And it's not going to go like that. It's going to go like this, and you're going to deviate out there, and you're going to fall off track, and it's all part of it.
Do you have like a set morning routine or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you do? How does the day start?
Get up and I go straight to my coffee machine.
See, part of me expected you'd be like one of these YouTubers where it's like 5 a.m. start, gratitude for 20 minutes, ice bath,
No, because like I like to think of this as just, I have a gratitude practice. I have a practice every day where I prop myself up through self-talk. 2 minutes, I sit down and I just talk about myself. I'm disciplined. I tell myself what I want to be. I'm disciplined. I'm focused. I'm courageous. I'm calm.
Is that it? Is that the daily mantra? Is it those 4 things?
What? No. I just talk about my, I talk about myself, and almost like man, you've done really well to get to the level. Why would you not talk about? We have far more negative thoughts in a day than positive ones, and we tend to react on those negative thoughts. And so it's really important, because don't wait for anyone else to do it for you. Prop yourself up. So I have these practices. I have a gratitude practice. My gratitude practice is so simple. I walk down the beach for a surf and I just go, man, I'm lucky to be able to go for a surf. Surfing for me used to be about catching all the waves, and and if I didn't get the good wave, I'd come out. But now it's just about being in the ocean and being like grateful that I have health to be out there. And my morning routine is have a coffee. I will often just walk out onto the balcony and I'll just be like, I don't know, just far out, man. Just take it all in for a minute. But I'm not that structured in terms of like my morning routine is this, and this. I exercise every day. I expose myself to challenge. I do some form of meditation every day. But I'm also busy. I'm also running a business that can get in the way of all of this stuff. And man, it's hard to get the balance right. It's really difficult to get the balance right. And that's why it's so important with all of this stuff that we keep it real simple. And it should be simple.
Fuck, this stuff's really refreshing to hear. That positive self-talk, has it always been like that? Or is this something you've had to work on?
I went through a stage in life. I feel like I've always had... I've always really deeply believed in myself, but I went through a phase in my life, probably around my sort of early 30s, where I experienced chronic pain and I feel like I lost my identity. I remember thinking, man, I'm over I remember like thinking of what I used to be like, and I'm over here and I can't bridge that gap. And it was a real feeling of being lost in my own body. And a lot of negative self-talk started, I started having some really troubling thoughts, like, thoughts like, how am I going to keep doing this? Because being in chronic pain and working on an ambulance, and at the same time, my girlfriend was going through a really difficult time. It was this culmination of all of this stuff, and it was incredibly overwhelming for me. And that's where I think that negative self-talk started dominating this space up here. And so as part of this whole journey, it was about, identifying that and again, realizing like, right, we can change all this. You just have to be, you got to be open to it. And it's all, I mean, going through like, you will know this. You've been through the fire, I'm sure.
Oh, no one gets to. I'm 52. No one.
Here we go. Yeah. Well, some people do get to 52 and have nothing happen to them.
Some sort of adversity. Nah, bullshit.
Well, I think that some people live a pretty or try to create a life where, because they have a negative relationship with stress, where they put a bunch of safety barriers up. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Yeah, we all go through the fire, and it's that negative relationship with stress and pressure and challenge where you create a very insular environment and you put all these safety barriers up. And that, because really happiness to me is about ripping those barriers down and exposing yourself to challenge and new experiences and being okay with setbacks and all the things that we've talked about, failure. But that to me is like, in my life, where I've felt most content is where I've really challenged myself.
Type 2 fun. Stuff that's often, do you know about type 2 fun?
Nah.
It was a previous podcast guest, Sir Peter Beck, who set up Rocket Lab, that introduced me to it. I'd never heard of it. But he said it's the sort of fun that's often it's shit at the time when you're doing it. But afterwards you go, actually, that was quite enjoyable. And I've heard you on another podcast talk about, like, and we'll get into this, your travel stories, like some camel trek you went on. That sounds like it was type 2 fun. Shit at the time.
Yeah.
And then afterwards you go, actually, that was one of the best experiences I had. When was the last time you failed really badly? Apart from being an hour late for this podcast today.
I feel like where I last felt really confronted was working in the ambulance service and having a couple of jobs go wrong. And the ambulance service is a small place and people talked, and that really affected my confidence. And that amplified stress for me, and I started noticing that I was going to these jobs and I was overwhelmed by stress and pressure. I could feel my heart rate going, my hands would be clammy. And for me, how that played out is I'd get into the job and I'd get tunnel vision. And in that job, if you get tunnel vision, it's very dangerous because you need to make clinical decisions under pressure. You need to have good peripheral awareness of what's going on. You need to make decisions about what do we do on scene, what do we do off scene. You also need to manage and lead a group of people. And so I started noticing that I'd get to these jobs and I was just getting tunnel vision, and that, you know, I made some poor clinical decisions, and then that amplified that stress even more. And I felt like whatever I've ever done in life, I want to be the best at it. I think we all do, you know, like you want to be good at it. And part of like starting in the ambulance service, I want to be an intensive care paramedic and I want to be the best at it. And when that happened and I had these jobs that, you know, failed, it really impacted me.
When you say poor clinical decisions, do you mean potentially like patients that died that didn't need to, or
no, not that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not. No, okay. I mean,
so I'm thinking that's in terms of stress. That's an extreme job.
Yeah, but the reality is that's what I'm talking about. The reality is a lot of these jobs are pre-hospital jobs. I mean, if you don't initiate the right care, they don't get to hospital. And so I was very acutely aware of that. But having these jobs that went wrong where I failed and people were talking about it was really confronting for me.
Yeah.
And, but man, I've failed, and so I'm failing all the time. I don't care that I'm failing, because in each of those, and I fail in business, I fail in the training that I do where I don't deliver up to the expectation that I expect of myself. I fail in my relationship. I fail in all far out. It's like, but I'd understand now that there's learning in all of that, right? So it's, I kind of view failing as it's only failing if you don't learn something from it and grow from it. And I don't look at failing as something that's negative. I look at it, you know, it sounds cliche, but as a stepping stone to success.
Have you? I might get the movie wrong. It's a kids' movie. You wouldn't have seen it. Called Inside Out. It's a Pixar movie.
What movie?
You know, Pixar. You know, Pixar, they do animated movies. It's like an arm of Disney. There's a movie called Inside Out, and there's a scene in there where this kid goes, "Oh no, I failed," and then all these bells and whistles goes off, and it's like, yeah, you failed. It's one step closer to success.
That's it, man, and that's the message we should be getting across to these kids and to everyone. And there's a real culture in New Zealand, I think, of like the stigma around certain things. There's a stigma around anxiety. There's a stigma around mental health. There is a stigma around imposter syndrome. You know, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
All the fucking time.
Yeah. My mindset about imposter syndrome matters. So my mindset around imposter syndrome is that it's good. It means that I'm in a situation where I'm challenging myself. I'm outside my comfort zone. I'm in a situation where I don't know a lot about the subject, but I'm there anyway. And imposter syndrome is good. And when you have that perception of imposter syndrome, when you find yourself there, you instantly have more control. It dampens the stress response. It's even like your mindset around stress. My mindset around stress is that it's good. Some people have a stress as debilitating mindset. If my mindset around, like, if I'm navigating a hardship and I feel like I'm going backwards, and in that moment, like, it's pretty full on. If my mindset around that is, this is good, this is actually where I need to be, I'm going to navigate through this, I'm going to come out the other side more resilient, then that's going to dampen the amount of stress I experience going through that event. So mindset around all of this stuff matters. And one of the biggest learnings I've taken away from doing all this stuff is developing my own mindset and realizing where I can reshape my mindset, realizing where I have a really fixed mindset around stuff and I maybe need to change that into more of a growth mindset. Realizing that, like, you know, I talked about, you know, for many years I had a lot of anger. I was very reactive. That became a subconscious pattern. So when I went into stress and pressure moments, that reactive pattern of anger would come to the forefront. I was consciously aware of it, but it was coming from my subconscious patterns of behavior, based on my practical experiences, based on my values, based on the things I'd been through in life. I recognize that I can change that pattern, but it requires a different mindset. My mindset is I remain calm and in control no matter what. I developed that mindset for myself about 8 years ago, and it has changed my life. And when I developed that mindset, someone would pull in front of me in the traffic, I'll get all pissed off, and then it'd be like, hold on, my mindset is to remain calm and in control. I'm going against the system and protocol I've made for my mindset. And then so I'd be calm, the next time, and it was just through this repetition. I can't even imagine, man, even getting in confrontations now. I got in a confrontation the other day, and back in the day, it would have just been like that, and I would have met that confrontation by raising my voice. Now I just take a step back, and calmness of mind is a superpower. And being able to regulate your emotions under pressure is a superpower. So the real strength, I thought the anger was a strength. The anger is a weakness.
Oh, yeah. And any interaction, when someone loses their cool, it's like they've lost the argument. Hey,
Exactly.
but you're still only human, though. When was the last time? Yeah, when was the last time you got angry?
Last time, I remember it so clearly.
Do you?
I was in the water surfing, and I won't go into detail, but I just saw red and I lost it.
What, did someone cut you off, steal your wave? No, what?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Like a point break moment.
We collided in the surf, and then we come up, and he said something to me, and then it's all on, and I went away from that experience because there's a bunch of other people in the water, and they're listening to me yelling and carrying on, and I went away from that experience feeling really, back in the day, I would have gone away from that and been like, yeah, that's a win. I went away from that really deflated because I'd gone against my mindset and because I understand that is a real sign of reactivity and weakness. And
so you failed to meet your own personal expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. But, emotional regulation is not only being able to regulate your own response, but what happened, like, I don't know what that guy's going through. I don't know what, like, saying those things, I don't know the effect that potentially could have had on him. And so, Piha's a small place. The next day I went up to him and I said, hey man, that I really apologize. That was not okay behavior, and, but very rarely now do I lose my temper. Very rarely. That's probably the last time, and that was years ago. But, that doesn't mean that, again, like, man, I'm definitely not.
You're human.
Yeah.
So, but are you just feeling measured? You don't get too high, don't get too low. So, like, never lower than a 3, never higher than like an 8.
Yeah, to be honest with you, by nature, I'm quite like a feisty person.
You can tell. You're Westie through and through.
I think that comes with, like, growing up out at Piha. Man, it was just this constant, like, I would say, like, peer pressure or, our challenge growing up was the ocean, and it was just like, I was petrified of the ocean. But I was constantly being pushed to go out there, and it was this challenge of going out when it's bigger and bigger. And then we had this other thing, I guess it was like, right, how do we show that we're real men? So, okay, we fight. So we go out, we drink, and we fight. And so I grew up in that environment, and I'm not good at fighting. And so I carried this, and then, going through my teenage years where I had these things happen, I would say they were pretty traumatic things that I didn't have the skills to deal with, that I just pushed back here and I ran away. I went overseas and I stayed overseas for 10 years. I'd be out at the pub 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know, it would just be like, nothing would happen, but it would just be like the switch, and I would just be, want to fight or be aggressive and it started coming out all the time, especially when I was when I was drinking. And looking back now, I understand all of it. It's just that if you push something back, it's going to come out one way or another.
Yeah, it's like the analogy I like to use is it's like putting dirty gym clothes in a bag and putting the boot of your car. Like the problem is not going to go away. Eventually, you're going to have to zip open that bag, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
What's What's the stuff you were talking about that you buried when you went overseas? Like, were you trying to run away from your demons, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
I guess like I'm not ready to like publicly talk about that stuff, and I've had to do a lot of deep work, man. I've had to do like a lot of self-reflection and a lot of deep work around, and it's not just that, like there's been other things in life that have been incredibly challenging. And for so long, my way of dealing with it was just avoidance.
Relatable.
Whereas like really the way to deal with it is acceptance and to do the best thing I've found in my life is personal growth. That's the best thing that I've ever got into in my life, and learning about all of the stuff that I now teach has just been an absolute game changer for me. And I feel so every day I feel so grateful that I surrounded myself with the right group of people, because their behaviors resonated over to me. And that's partly like having people around you that can be like, hey man, the way that you're doing things is not right, and having your mates confronting you about this stuff. But yeah, as I've got into my late 30s and 40s, really surrounding myself with people that are also into self-betterment and personal growth has had there's a guy that helps me run the workshop. His name's Jamal. He runs a company called Tikairahi, which is to mentor. And he comes on this workshop and he does a talk, this 45-minute talk. I've heard it 20, 30 times. Every time I hear it, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And it took me probably 10 times of listening to this talk for some of the things that he said to really sink in. And listening to that talk it's been an absolute game changer for me, man. Some of the stuff that he talks around, his one thing that he kept saying is like, whatever you put out in the world, so whatever thoughts you have, whatever you put out, you will find confirmation of that everywhere. So if I'm putting out negative energy, if I'm thinking negative thoughts, I will find confirmation of that everywhere. That's why gratitude is such an important practice. I'm grateful just being able to walk down the beach and go for a surf. Well, you'll go through your day and you'll start seeing the good in other things. And then it's not like a practice that you have to sit down and do. It just happens autonomically. And so being around those types of people is contagious, man. And this is why I love working with the athletes. They are really good people, and I learn a lot from them, and being around that type of high achiever.
Yeah. There's a saying like if you hang out with 4 smokers, you'll be the 5th. If you hang out with 4 obese people, you'll be the 5th. It works the same. The other on the positive end of the scale, I guess, as well, eh?
I tell you what's quite confronting is like with going through this. I had a big mental block around even starting an Instagram account and putting stuff out there, because when I grew up, if you put your head up, you got pushed back down. That was just what it was. You didn't do that. It's self-promotional, that sort of stuff, and so there's a real mental block around that. And but obviously we know like that's all bullshit. Like if you want to get ahead in life, you got to put yourself out there.
So how old are you?
43.
43. Yes, I'm not like 9 years older than you. So yeah, and there's so many parallels with what you were saying. Like I can relate. Like vulnerability, not a thing at all. Showing any sort of weakness would be weaponized against you. Even where I went to school, like you'd be called a try-hard, and you look back now, and you think, what's wrong with trying it? Trying hard is the most powerful thing.
That was such a common phrase. Oh, yeah, try hard.
Yeah. What's wrong with trying hard? It's a superpower.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you may have experienced this, but when you do put yourself out there, sometimes it's people that are relatively close to you that push you down. And that for me was like a real aha moment. It's like, that really surprised me. And it comes back to that thing where, those people, I kind of love them but keep them at a distance. And my real mates are the type of people that when you put yourself up there, they prop you up. And you know what I want for all of my mates is for them to be successful, happy, to challenge themselves. That's what we should all want for not only our mates but everyone. And we were talking about like raise the consciousness. Raising the consciousness is like let's all prop each other up. Let's all it can be something as simple as just walking down the road and we're all busy and we're all stuck in our heads. It's just smiling at someone, or just like the interactions that you have throughout the day. You want to leave people with a feeling of
feeling a bit better. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, what you're saying, it's so true. My inner circle is so small and so tight now. It's ridiculous because you just want people there that completely have your back unconditionally. And it's amazing. It's sort of like a localized version of tall poppy in a way, isn't it? People around you, they want you to succeed, but only to a point. Because I think it sort of highlights their weaknesses or something.
Yeah, I think sometimes if it can be confronting, maybe, and I think a lot of people are threatened by other people's success.
Yes.
I mean, like you can't say you've never been through life and been threatened by someone else's success, whether it's someone that's coming in and is doing a podcast that's similar to yours, or it's someone that's coming into mental skills where I'm at, and it's like you feel that is normal human behavior. Why? Because this thing's wired for survival. But I can just recognize it now. I'm just able to have that self-awareness to be like, okay, put my finger, okay, that's that. I'm threatened by this person's success because of X, Y, and Z. Hey, man, you don't need to feel like that. Actually, you need to be embracing them. The more people we have, it's like a guy builds a cafe here, and he's got everyone coming to his cafe because he's got the only other cafe, and then someone builds a cafe next to him, and he starts fighting that guy because he wants to be the only cafe. The reality is, with two cafes, there's going to be more people there, and then you can this guy here can make the pies, and you can buy the pies off him, and you can start collaborating. And I'm a collaborativist. I want to collaborate with people because I recognize that in order for me to get ahead, I don't know everything. I want to collaborate with people that are specialists in their field, and I want to welcome people, and that's how you get better, right? You can't do it by yourself.
Yes, I think it's flipping from like a scarcity mindset.
I had a scarcity mindset around money for so long, man.
I think I still do, to be fair. I got a really weird relationship with money, but that's not a conversation for today. I'll save that for therapy.
Yeah, and I had to really take a step back and be like, right, where does the scarcity mindset come from? And I was able to identify that growing up, my old man is the hardest worker I have ever. I mean, he's a man. Just watching him growing up from a young age, I identified in terms of getting money, you had to work incredibly hard. I then went traveling for 10 years on a shoestring budget. And so it was all about, if I wanted to get a new surfboard, I'd save up for months and months and months. If like a new pair of shoes, I'd save up. And it was all traveling on a shoestring. And I think that for me created this scarcity mindset around money. And then coming into now owning my business, you have to change that mindset because there is an abundance of opportunity. There's an abundance of money.
Yeah.
I have a mindset where it's like money and money comes to me freely, and I have multiple sources of income. Well, that's been a game changer because remember, it's what you put out. It's what you put out.
That's great. Hey, this has been really good stuff. And there's been so many takeaways in here that I think so many people can get a lot of value out of for themselves. Should we focus on your personal life for a bit now? Dave Wood. Okay, what is something that, have a swig of your water. Massive Yeti bottle there. What is that, like 1.5 litres, 2 litres?
I don't know. It's probably a bit more than a litre.
What's something about you? Something that people might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh man,
I've got a couple here. If you can't think of anything,
I'm surprised to learn about me. I don't know.
You're deaf in your right ear.
Yeah,
completely deaf.
Completely, yeah.
Since birth?
Nah, since about the age of 5. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm deaf in that ear. I have tinnitus in this ear, which is constant ringing. Not
surprised. You were listening to AC/DC so loud on the way in this morning.
I have bulging disc in my neck. I have, and as a result of that, I've got this this nerve that flares up down my arm, which causes like intense itching. I've had bilateral failed hip surgery, which has resulted in chronic pain. I have bulging discs in my lower back. I've had bilateral shoulder surgeries. I got a lot going on.
You're a broken man.
People look at me and they think, man, you're working in this area of mental skill development. You've got all your stuff together. I'm on a journey. I'm on a journey, man, and I love the journey, but it's challenging. It's real challenging, man. And again, that comes back to like, I'm just so grateful that I found these skills, because I believe if I didn't have these skills, it would kind of like everything that I've been through or am going through, I feel like it would kind of be very overwhelming.
Yeah. Something else that people might not know about you, you're bros with King Charles.
He's so funny.
He's one of your boys?
Prince Charles is my mate.
King Charles.
So yeah, I was working for a catering company in London called the Admiral Crichton. They do all the royal family charity events. And you're very much not out the front, you're in the back and, doing all the food prep and stuff like that. And one night I was slicing the salmon, and Charles likes to walk around in the back scenes and go and meet everyone, which I thought was really cool. And so he came up to me and he was like, and you get told to, when you meet him, to say, Your Royal Highness, which felt really weird for me. So I was like, good evening, Your Royal Highness. And he was like, just call me Charles. And he was like, where'd you get the salmon? Where's the salmon from? And I was like, and my head's going a million miles an hour. I was like, Ireland. And he's like, Ireland? I don't know where the salmon was from. And he was, wonderful. And he was like, you're Kiwi. And I was like, yeah, I'm from Piha. And he's like, I know Piha, which I thought was, Piha's a tiny place. And then we got chatting, and then Camilla comes over and he introduced me to Camilla. And then the next time that we were doing an event at Buckingham Palace, he came over and he remembered my name. So yeah, we are bros.
Unreal. It's an amazing story, especially now that he's king. It's amazing.
Yeah. What was amazing in that job was just being in those places like Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace. And
was it? In what way?
Well, you just don't ever expect, like in my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd be doing, working in those types of places.
Is that almost like an imposter syndrome moment? Like, fuck, what's a boy from Piha doing?
Oh, all the time. I'm like, man, yeah, all the time. But that's not imposter syndrome. That's just like, holy shit, look what I'm doing.
Like a pinch myself moment. Yeah. Cool. So the backstory, you went to Auckland Grammar?
Yep.
And average intelligence. This is another thing I could relate with you.
You are being very kind there. Average. Yeah. You were going to say average intelligence. I was in the bottom class. Mate.
No, they had the streaming system thing. I don't know if they still have that now.
They still have it.
But you were dumb by school standards, but it was later sort of recognised that you had like dyslexia or unable to learn like a normal sort of way. Is that fair?
Yep. Yeah. So third form turned up at Auckland Grammar, sat in the hall while they called out A, B, C, D, and I was like, and I'm not going to be in the top classes, E, F, G, and I was like, I'll be around about the middle. And it got down to L, it goes down to M. They called out, and when it got to K, I remember going to a teacher because there's only a few people left, and I said, hey man, there's something's going on here. My name hasn't been called out, and he just told me to sit down. So I sat down. I was in L, and it went down to M, and that for me was, from that moment on, my mindset was, I am dumb. That means that I'm not going to try. And that means that I'm never going to expose myself to any job or anything that requires, smarts. And I saw the same thing in all the kids in my class. We just didn't try. And then when I left school, I never went to university because, I'm not intellectual. So I always took on jobs that didn't require, I don't know, like, working, I won't even say, but I just took on jobs that
didn't require like mental intelligence.
yeah.
Just physical jobs.
Yeah, just physical. Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't until I went back to university at the age of 30, and I started getting D's in that first semester, and it was just all that came back to me, man. I was like, what am I doing here? And I was, again, very confronting, and a teacher, I forget her name, I'd like to remember her name. She was a legend, man. And she identified that I did have a learning issue, and she sent me to a part of the university where they can assess that. And they decided that if I drew diagrams, that would be hugely beneficial because I was a very visual learner. And so I started even in my exams, they allowed me to do diagrams, and I would draw these incredibly intricate diagrams, and I started getting A's and A pluses right through my degree. And then I was like, holy man, I'm actually quite smart. That took me,
It's funny, isn't it? Because I suppose it's a story that you get told and then you just believe it, or you start to tell yourself that story, that you're a person that you can't do this thing or can't do that thing.
Yeah, I tell you, like that whole thing of never trying, I failed fifth form maths. I got like 45%. I had to go back in sixth form. I had to go back and do fifth form maths again. And I got 43%. And my old man said, you got me a tutor. I'd have a maths tutor 2 times a week. And I could see it was like, well, fuck, you're going back a whole nother year and you've had a tutor and you got 2 less marks. But at that point, my mindset was, it doesn't matter. That was the fixed mindset. You are dumb. Doesn't matter what you do. You will never be smart. You will never be good at math. You will never be. And that people carry that type of mindset their entire lives, like the reality is that is a very fixed way of looking at stuff. And I still have a fixed mindset around certain things and I'm very aware of it.
But when you're aware of these things, that's when you can sort of pull yourself up, or
you can, but
take a drone-like view and be aware that you're doing it.
Yeah, but some things I'm very aware of some of my patterns of behavior that are holding me back. I'm not ready to change them. I'm very aware of some of my patterns of behavior that are maybe not healthy patterns, but they are patterns that are fucking pushing me forward, man. I tell you, all high achievers have three things. They have something that's a chip on their shoulder, something that's driving them. And for me, there's a big chip on my shoulder around, there was things that teachers told me, man, in that school, and there's things that people said to me, and I've always been like, right, I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to be the best. It comes back to that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to prove myself. So it's this chip on my shoulder, but that comes from way back there. And then there's a clear destination, a clear vision, a clear purpose, a clear goal. And then the third thing they have is the ability to center their focus, to be present in what you're doing. Those 3 things. And I've identified that as being, there's these things that are, there's chip on my shoulder, this thing that's, maybe it's not healthy, but I'm not ready to remove that. If I do, I feel like it'll stop that edge, that drive, that thing that's pushing me.
You're using it as fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of the classroom, though, you were quite capable, though. Like, you were a captain at Piha by the age of 19.
Yeah.
Which means you're like the lifeguard boss. Is that what that means?
Yeah. I was the youngest captain, I think, in New Zealand at that time, and I had a team of 12 people. And man, at that age, at 19, your prefrontal cortex hasn't even fully developed. I look back, man, and it was pretty wild. It's a lot of responsibility, because you've got thousands and thousands of people on the beach, and you're responsible for the team and the management of the beach. But I learned a lot through that. I lifeguarded for professional ocean lifeguarded for 10 years, and I went overseas and I did that in Cornwall for 5 years, and I learned a lot just being exposed to that challenge and stress and pressure doing that job, and the same in the ambulance.
Can you remember the first time you dealt with a death?
Yeah.
So you were a teenager when this happened? Yeah,
I was, and that is something for me that is very challenging to talk about, because when you're in charge of the beach, that's on you. And not getting in too deep into the details, but when you're that age, it's easy to be influenced by outside noise, and the outside noise was, this is how you set the beach up. This is where you need to put the flags. Now I would just be like, I would exercise my autonomy and be like, no, that's not the right way to do it. But I was being influenced. And basically it resulted, have you heard of the Swiss cheese effect?
No, what's that?
And so say in any, like in surf life saving or anything, any business, you have a whole lot of safety layers, right? And when there's holes in those defense layers and those holes line up, something catastrophic happens. And that's what happened on this day. Those holes lined up. One of those holes was me.
You were young though. Like, with the benefit of hindsight, you must realize maybe you didn't have the confidence or the courage.
No, I had the confidence. I was overly confident. Those holes lined up, and ultimately someone drowned. And it's easy to be like, well, okay, this is that person's fault, because there's a whole lot of things. But at the end of the day, if you're the captain and you're in charge of that beach, it's on you. And so that really, that was a hard one. And I don't think with that type of stuff, man, you kind of carry that. You always carry that, right? Yeah.
How do you process that at that age? Like you
drink, go party, and
it's a sensible way to go around it.
Yeah, it's all just shove it in the back and move on, isn't it?
Yeah, there are moments from the life saving that stay with you forever.
Yep, the team, the camaraderie
Yeah.
is the most important thing, and I love that about surf lifesaving. I loved that I love the autonomy of you are in charge of this beach, and because there's a lot of autonomy in surf lifesaving. There's a lot of autonomy that you have working on the ambulance. I love those types of jobs, and I think it's such a shame that we have. And this is like across the board, that we have brought in so many rules and regulations, and we're so scared to put a foot out of place, and we're taking away people's autonomy to make decisions. And I saw that in surf lifesaving. I could see the transition very clearly. I saw that in the ambulance service, and it's a damn shame because it's that making mistakes, giving people autonomy, allowing them to make mistakes, controlled mistakes, and learning from that, which I feel like we're taking away from people. But I forgot your question, but yeah, just being around the team and people and being challenged in that job is fantastic.
You would have been one of those lifeguards that was telling people off, eh? You would have been...
Oh, bro.
I've seen it about Piha Rescue. You would have been one of the shouty guys. Get between the fucking flags. What the fuck are you doing? Yeah.
I was not the type of person that if someone stepped a foot out the flags, I'd be down there whistling. Man, I'd almost let people get in trouble, and then you'd go and... But I did, man. I had like... I don't know, if someone was like... I was just... growing up, I was just ready for confrontation. I was reactive. Yeah, I was just ready for... And I almost welcomed it, and when it was there, it was... I enjoyed it.
Just like an angry... Would you say you're an angry young man?
Not... I think... well, looking back, I probably was, but not... I was still a good bloke, man. I was like, I was still kind to people, and I cared deeply about people. I cared about others. I cared about my mates. I cared about my family. But I just, always had this, I always welcomed a confrontation. But I want to steer down the barrel of the lens. I was not tough. I was not tough, man. And I was not a great fighter or anything like that. I'm not saying that, I'm this big tough guy at all. So yeah,
I've had Dan Hooker on the podcast, and there's a guy that just loves fighting, right? Loves it.
There's a guy that
loves fighting.
Good at fighting.
doesn't even mind losing and being punched as long as it's a good fight. Just loves fighting.
Yeah, and I grew up, like we would surf, and then our side thing was going to kickboxing. We went to Strike Force Gym in New Lynn, and we were there for like 10, on and off for like 10, 12 years, and so. We knew how to fight, but our thing was, you'd drink too much, and then you'd want to prove to everyone that you were tough, and so you'd be a fight, and you'd be jumping in there, and
So the lifeguarding stuff, that's what took you around the world through your 20s. So was it sort of professional? Was it like semi-professional? You get paid a fee?
Yeah, lifeguarding. You can do lifeguarding professionally. You can do it year round. You do get paid, and it's not. It's definitely not great pay. But the thing about like that job is, when I went overseas and I was lifeguarding, I made enough money to because the lifeguard season over there goes for 6 months. I would then have enough money to travel for 6 months, and I did that for 6 years. So it was based in Cornwall. Bought a van, went through Europe, took my van down into Morocco, went right through Central and South America, right through Asia, and. Yeah, and then I did lots of other jobs. I worked for the Admiral Crichton. I worked putting up marquees all around England. I worked in Venezuela for a bit. I worked for Club Med for 2 years in Indonesia, and then in Malaysia, teaching windsurfing and sailing. So, yeah, I look back on that as probably the most important... I look back on when I think about like the most content I've ever been in my life. It was when I had the least amount of things, or when I was traveling through Venezuela and I just had my backpack, or I was going through Asia and it just had the things that it was just life was just so simple, right?
At the time or in hindsight?
In hindsight,
yeah.
In hindsight, because even like I've always taken this idea that I don't want to overcomplicate my life. I want my life to be, I don't want too many things. I want to live a simple life. But even when you try hard to do that, it's very difficult to do because inevitably you're going to have a house, you're going to have a mortgage, you're going to buy a car, and you've got all these things that you got to service. And that you got to be really. I think you have to be really careful to keep your life simple.
Have you seen the minimalism documentary on Netflix? Yeah. Fuck, I love that. That was a game changer for me.
It was,
Yeah, because I was probably at my most unhappiest where I had the most material possessions. Like me and my ex-wife, we bought a villa. When we moved in, there were empty rooms, and by the time we left, it was like just full of clutter. We even had some stairs installed and got an attic built, and I just had accumulated so much stuff, and I realized all of it just added to sort of mental weight in a way, and none of it actually brought me joy anymore. Temporary joy. That was it. You buy something and you'd be happy for a couple of days, and that's it.
Well, it's like when you clean your car or you clean your room, you instantly feel way more mental clarity, right? And I remember working with an athlete, and it was coming up to the time of the competition, and one of the things that I said to him was, man, make sure your house and your room is tidy. Just go back and make sure everything's tidy. Because it is that you've instantly, when everything's tidy and everything's in place and there's no clutter in it, you just feel like way better.
100%. So when you came back from these extreme travels, which, like you talked about Club Med for a couple of years, but it seems like you did a lot of really rough stuff, and there was even a couple of times where your life was in jeopardy, like being left out at sea in Bali. That sounds fucking harrowing, by the way. What was that? It was like a surf trip where the boat takes you out, and it's like a Final Destination thing or something. Pretty sure I've seen a movie with this plot. And the boat goes back in and you're left out there on a surfboard. Yeah,
long story short, I got left way out to sea and had to paddle in, and it was dark, and all the water was moving out of the way that the reef passes work out of there. Is you got millions of tons of water moving out these reef passes, and so it took me like about 3 hours to paddle in, and if you weren't a good paddler, you definitely weren't getting in from that. But
it's terrifying.
Yeah, I don't know. That was not like something that was, I guess, like terrifying. It was just really uncomfortable. But I have been in man, there's situations I've been in my travels that I've never told anyone about. I've never shared it, not even with my family, and I probably will take that stuff to my grave.
Oh, no, now's the opportunity.
Yeah, and
it's got to be one.
I just wouldn't share it. It's stuff that like is in the vault, man. And
why stuff that happened to you, or stuff that you did, or both, or
both, man. It's just like the situations that I ended up in over there, and nothing like where I've done something really bad, but it's the stuff that I just wouldn't share it. It's not like
you look back in hindsight and you think, "Fuck, how did I survive that?"
Exactly, bro.
Right.
Exactly, and putting myself in situations where I shouldn't have been, and doing things that were really. I look back on and we're just like, I can't even imagine doing that stuff now. But the thing with all of my travel was like, I was in a time in my life I really wanted to challenge myself. I grew up listening to my old man stories of traveling through the Middle East when no one was doing that stuff. And I worked with a guy who really influenced my travels, who said, he was constantly getting in my head. He goes, when you go traveling, you don't stay at hostels, you don't stay at backpackers. You go and stay with that's how you're going to learn when you're traveling. You don't go to the tourist traps. You go get yourself way out on the, And I just listened to this guy for years. I worked with him in Cornwall, and he was this guy is, when you talk about a traveler, this guy's a traveler, man. He's been everywhere. That's all he does his whole life. He's like, 55, 60 years old now, and he's still way out there doing stuff that most people wouldn't do. And I had this guy influencing the way that I perceive travel. And so when I went traveling, it was like, man, I really want to get myself out there and challenge myself. And then, the camel track, like most people will go into the Thar Desert for a night and spend it with a group. A night wasn't enough. I went in there for 8 days, tramping through the Thar Desert with a camel and the camel herder, and he couldn't speak English, and it's 40-degree heat. And, on the second day I had a heat stroke, and all we ate was rice and chapati and potatoes, and it was just terribly uncomfortable, and I hated it. At the time, I hated it. I will remember that for the rest of my life. There was one night where we spent, because the desert's like very flat, right? There's nothing to look at. You're
sand on sand.
I could get off and walk ahead of the camel. We were going that slow, and there's, after 24 hours, I was like, the hell am I doing here? One night, we were 3 days in, and there was a hill, and we went up to the top and slept on the top of this hill. And in the very far distance, there was a little village, and they were playing this music that was echoing through that you could hear. And I was sitting up the top there and just looking out, like panoramic view, 360 degrees, like for as far as your eye could see was just desert. And I was just like, man, there's no more isolating. Like, look where I am. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget, even after the third day, I was trying to tell this guy to take me back. I was drawing diagrams on the ground to get me back to this place, Bikanea, where this little town, and the whole time it was a battle, but I look back on that as one of the best experiences of my life, and all the challenges I've gone through in life, whether it be traveling or whatever, you navigate, you come out the other side, and that's what you remember. That's why I said, like, if you want to find true happiness, whatever that is, I don't even know what true happiness is, but I know that in order to be content and happy, you've got to expose yourself to challenge. Because that's how we grow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's that saying, like something like the comfort zone. It's a great place, but nothing grows there.
Yeah, and I love comfort.
Everyone does. Yeah,
I love sitting in my beanbag in the evening, watching an episode, having a little whiskey. I love comfort, but I also love, like, I'm trying to find things now. I said to you before, where I can get that same feeling of overwhelm and stress and anxiety, where I feel really uncomfortable. I want to find that, man. Like, I want to do things in the next, with my business and what I'm doing that really challenge me. I just want to. That's what I really want.
So this extreme travel and these adventures, which went on for years, like, and with the benefit of hindsight, like, were you trying to find yourself or something, or were you trying to torture yourself for something that you're escaping from, like from a psychoanalysis point of view?
I don't know. I would say I'm actually not that deep a thinker, to be honest. I am pretty simple. Yeah. And when I look back at it, I think that I just loved being out there, man. I loved, like, I loved the adversity, and I love the idea that I was just out there, and that it was like, there's not many other people here, and I'm doing something that's, considered to be out there. Yeah. That's, to me, that's just what I just enjoyed it. So I don't try to, but maybe you're right. Maybe there was something like deeper there, but I don't think we need to work everything out either. I think, like, you can go down with this, like, personal growth and self-betterment. I think you can sometimes dig too deep. Overthink it and overcook it, and sometimes it's like, whatever it is, it just is,
Yeah. So once you got that out of your system and you survived, you came back to New Zealand, then you studied and became an intensive care paramedic for St. John's. Anything from that career that still haunts you? How long did you do that for? 12 years?
13 years.
13 years.
Like, when you say that, like, honestly, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, because people don't understand. People have a very warped perspective of what, they call them ambulance drivers. Being an intensive care paramedic nowadays is like taking the resus room from the hospital out into the pre-hospital environment. You have a very broad scope of practice. You are confronted. I like to, I don't know, like, imagine anything that you can conjure up in your head is what we see in the pre-hospital environment, and you are exposed to very challenging, stressful situations where if you don't have good situational awareness, you can really get yourself messed up. I saw things in that job that no one should have to see. I saw things in that job that unless you had the ability to just push it back, you couldn't do your job, because one minute you'd be doing something that you'd be exposed to something very horrific, and then the next minute you'd be having your lunch, and then you'd be on to the next job. So if you didn't compartmentalize, how do you say that?
Compartmentalize.
Yeah, then you couldn't do your job, and that's what it, and the other thing is, like, I became very cynical about human beings doing that job, but that's why I left in the end. I was just like, I became very frustrated that people were doing what they were doing, like inflicting self-misery on themselves through basically lifestyle choices. not looking after themselves. But yeah, I was even thinking, man, on the drive in here, I don't know why, but I started thinking about a few jobs that I went to that really, I would say, now I understand really had a profound effect on me. And they wouldn't be the type of jobs that you would expect, like nothing gory. It was just the jobs that really stuck with me was where that human side of it came into it, like where you have to go and tell a family that, their loved ones just passed away.
You had to do that?
My job as an intensive care paramedic, at one point I worked in a first response Jeep, and my job was to drive around backing up crews, right? And if you're a junior crew and you're at a cardiac arrest, you can't call time off until an intensive care paramedic gets there. So at one point I felt like the Grim Reaper. I was going from job to job, walk in, have a look at the monitor, talk to the crew, make a decision to stop, go and tell the family, on to the next one. And I remember going to a job, and I called the resuscitation, went up to the family, and I said to the lady, "He's dead." And then I walked off, and I was out in the truck filling out the paperwork, and a girl came up to me and she goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know I found that was really, really blunt." And I sat there and I thought about it. It was blunt. And but the thing was that at that point, man, it was just, I feel like if you bought too much into the emotional element of it, it would just, I don't know how to explain it.
Self-preservation.
You become desensitized, man. I have so much respect for the emergency services and whether it be the police, the fire, or the ambulance, because these guys and girls are exposed to stuff that is just, we don't even realize it, So yeah, it was just that dealing with the human element of it. And I would go to, man, I learned so much from that job, because I would go to elderly people over the age of 90. Whenever you go to someone over the age of 90, you'd be driving there and you'd be reading the notes, and you'd be like, in your head, you would conjure up an image of what this person would look like. Oh, over the age of 90, they're going to be, cognitively and physically. And you'd get there and they'd be sprightly, they'd be fully cognitively on point, no arthritis, and they may have just knocked their leg and had a skin tear and they needed like some help, right? And I'd get there and I'd talk to, and they were war vets and they had these amazing stories, and I would always ask them. So I did a 13-year study when I worked on the ambulance. Whenever I went to someone over the age of 90, even centurions, 100 years old, I'd say, "What is the secret?" And they would always say the same things. And those things were, they worked until late in life. So they had purpose and they enjoyed what they were doing. They were passionate about what they're doing. That's what that tells me. Plus they were staying cognitively stimulated. They always, you'd go in there and they'd have a veggie patch and they'd talk about food. They were making their own veggies and they prioritized like eating healthy food. They would still go to bingo nights and they still had close social interactions. If you're socially isolated, that's significantly affects your mental health, right? They were active. They were still exercising. They were still moving. And they had a really positive outlook, positive mindset. It was those 5 things every time. So whilst in that job, you're exposed to all sorts of gnarly stuff, and it's can be confronting. There's such a beautiful element to that job, and that is the humanistic side of it. And and even the team that you work with, you spend, a shift goes for 12 hours, and on a shift you might not even get a lunch break, and you might have to work 2 hours overtime. It's full on, man. And at night time, you're going from one job to the next job. You're clearing a hospital, and you're on to the next one, and you're leaning on the energy of the person that you're working with. I miss that camaraderie of that side of it. It's a crazy job, man. Like you're at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to a job that requires all of your cognitive focus. You're exhausted. You've been burning it all night, and you're having to make these clinical decisions under pressure. And it's a hugely demanding job, which is why I respect them so much.
Yeah, there's heaps of jobs like that we don't even think about. Like, I think the first and only time I've seen a dead body in my life is like my 86-year-old nana in an open casket, and that was quite confronting. And I was talking to where this studio is. We're just over the road from the police station. I was talking to a cop a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about some of the aspects of his job, and he said, like just recently, that they attended a suicide where it had happened like 5 days earlier. And then afterwards, they got McDonald's on the way back to the to the station, and he was just reflecting on the surrealness of it all. It's fucking bizarre what emergency services and intensive care ambos have to go through.
Yeah. I remember going to a job working in Helensville, and at the time you would work single crewed. And I was asleep and the tones went off at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was just down the road, and I ended up down this long driveway, drove nose down, which you never do. You always reverse down in case you don't know what you're going into at 2 o'clock on a Saturday night. And I ended up down this long driveway, and I won't go into heaps of detail, but I knew straight away when I walked into the scene that I was in a place where I shouldn't be, and especially working by yourself. And I didn't have my radio on me. I left it in the truck. And I arrived there, and there was a person on the ground unconscious and in a pool of blood, and there was a whole bunch of people standing around. And so you walk in, you want to get a little bit of history of what's going on. No one would talk. And one guy said, they've fallen down the stairs. There was no stairs anywhere, so you can read between the lines. And this is 100 kgs of dead weight on the ground. And this patient was critically unwell and needed to be in hospital, but I couldn't get the patient off the ground onto the stretcher without the help of someone, without the help of someone giving me a lift. And so then this guy turned on me and he said, well, where's the person you're working with? And it became this very this guy was basically shadowing me, and he said, man, if you don't get this person out of here, we're basically going to fuck you up type thing, And so at the end, I just had to bend down and just wrestle this person onto the stretcher, and then getting the stretcher up and into the back of the truck, and I had this person following me the whole way. And there was certain things, like if you don't have good self-awareness and self-regulation in those moments on those jobs, man, you can literally, you can get really, you can find yourself in a really bad situation.
Are there any bizarre call-outs that you remember?
Oh, lots of bizarre call-outs, man.
Or some of the funnier ones?
Oh, I don't know, man. You go to oh man, I don't know. There's so many
like butt stuff.
There's so many. I mean, I remember going to a guy who basically got home from town, walking down just normal person walking down his driveway, and was so intoxicated that he fell into the ditch and called the ambulance because he couldn't get himself out of the ditch. And all I turn up is bend down, get him up, knock on the door. The wife comes to the door, and here's your husband. That kind of stuff was just routine. But
are you angry? Are you pissed at that point? You can laugh about it now, but you're at this high stress, high pressure job.
I just you can some of the jobs are so just out there that you have to just laugh at it. But you do get annoyed at getting woken up going to jobs where they don't actually need an ambulance.
What about smells that you'll never forget from that job?
Oh, the smells was the worst. That was the worst thing. That I could see anything, the blood, the open wound, all that stuff didn't affect me, but the smells were overwhelming. And that's, I find it difficult to go into too much detail because I want to be respectful of but you're talking about jobs where you're going into a house and someone has been passed away for a week and they're decomposing and you're in there, and it's pretty gnarly. But in that job, man, you get spat on, you get vomited on, you get shit on you, you get pissed on. It's that's not that uncommon.
Do you think all these things that you've been through, they led you to integrated training and calm under pressure? But do you think now, if something like calm under pressure existed and you did that, and then you started becoming a intensive care paramedic, you would have been better at the job? Or I suppose another way of framing it, if someone's just getting into that sort of field of work now, if they came and saw you for a weekend, would it equip them better for the job?
Definitely. Man, I went right through school and I didn't learn the skills of stress.
No one does, right?
I didn't learn how to develop my mindset. I didn't learn how to shift my perspective. I didn't learn how thoughts, thinking, emotion, action, outcome. I didn't know about thought control and reframing. I didn't know about cognitive reappraisal. I didn't know about acceptance or any of this stuff. Then I went to university for 4 years. I studied a degree in health science. Not once, I'm telling you, man, not once did we learn about how to control our physical and mental state under pressure. Now that to me is mad. And then you're thrust out into the pre-hospital environment where you are exposed with everything you can imagine, and you have to be calm under pressure, otherwise you can't execute. So you learn that. You just learn it on the job. But these are young kids, 19, 20, that are coming through into this job now. And I just want to make it very clear, that job is a beautiful job. If there are people out there listening to this, I don't want to be a parent. It is a wonderful job. You're helping other people, and you're learning, incredible skills that will set you up for life, I feel.
Did you have on an occasion or numerous occasions where you were dealing with a patient and they thought they were fine, but you knew you were saving their life?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember going to a 28-year-old guy in Glen Eden who was having a myocardial infarction, so a heart attack. And all he experienced was so an occlusion in his coronary artery in his heart, which, by the way, is not that uncommon in people of that age. You would think it would be very uncommon, but it's not. And all he was experiencing was some shortness of breath and some chest discomfort. And so he didn't want to go to hospital. And I was having to explain to him and show him the ECG, you are having an evolving event here where you are basically having a heart attack. And this guy was refusing to go to the hospital. So, yeah, lots of times.
Wow. What were the biggest lessons about, first of all, about yourself, but also about the human psyche during this period in that job? Sorry, we're getting really deep here today.
No, I think what surprised me most is that how we can willingly do the stuff that we do to ourselves physically and mentally, and the punishment we put our bodies through, I don't think that we are a very well nation of people. You only have to go to the mall, go look around the mall. Every second person's morbidly obese.
Yeah.
See, I know that I will get, for saying these types of things, I know that I'll get some backlash, but that's the reality. Let's just be honest. There is a physical health crisis and a mental health crisis in New Zealand. And I came on a podcast and I said this. We're talking about a mental health crisis. There is a physical health crisis. And then everyone's saying to me, oh, how dare you say it's a physical health crisis and not give the respect to the fact that it's a mental health crisis. We have one body. If you are not physically healthy, it affects you mentally. Physical health is mental health. Mental health is physical health. It is. We got to get away from this huge, the mental and the physical is just, it's one. How do we improve our mental health? We invest in our physical health. How do we improve our physical health? We invest in our mental health. So yeah, it was. I think your question was just. I can't even remember what your question was.
Biggest things you learned about yourselves and other people during this time. And I think that's really good. There's another quote I really like. It's like a man who has good physical health can have many wishes. A man who has bad physical health only has one wish.
To be healthy, yeah.
100%. Because it's like, you think even if you got like a infected like toenail or something, it's all you can think about.
When you have had your health taken away from you, my purpose, I feel like one of my deep purposes in life is when I'm 60, I want to be when I'm 50, I want to be healthier than what I am now. When I'm 60, I want to be stronger, more resilient than what I am when I'm 50. And I believe that I can do that. And so part of my purpose for that is that I've had my health taken away from me. I've been in a very lost place where, with chronic pain and feeling the effects of that, and this part of that is that's what drives me to go to the gym every day, do my mobility work, do my meditation, and I don't understand it when I want everyone to be. My wish would be for everyone to invest into their physical and mental health and to be constantly working on themselves, because that raises the consciousness of everyone. That raises the bar for everything. And so that's like part of that was I got frustrated just seeing like the effect of but also the burden that had on the public health system. Huge burden, man, on the public health system from people that weren't looking after themselves. So it's not just you're affecting everybody. You know, the waiting rooms are full up. A routine procedure now, like appendix removal or whatever it might be, have now become very complicated procedures. So that is putting a lot of pressure on the anaesthetist. That's putting a lot of pressure on the doctor, because they're now having to work in an environment where the stakes are so much higher because these people are such high risk. But we don't see that, and we don't see that, like, you know, when you're taking the old person who's served our country and they need help, and you're taking them into the hospital, and all the rooms are full of people that haven't looked after themselves, and they're waiting out in the foyer, and they're not getting the help that they deserve.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things in the world would be like spending the last 10 or 15, 20 years of your life trapped in a body that doesn't work anymore. That would suck so much, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And man, we're in our old age, we're supposed to thrive, man. We're supposed to be healthy.
Yeah.
Look at like those countries where they call them the blue zones, but you're looking at like people in their 90s that are just humming, man. But that starts now. That starts right now, and it's the other thing is, like, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to, because all these kids are looking at us. So what are they looking at when we get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? What are they seeing? You know, are they seeing people that are high functioning and still exercising and vibrant and eating good food? And, you know, so we all have, for this mental health crisis that they're talking about, where it starts is with each one of us, you and me. Yeah, just doing our job. And again, like, this thing doesn't need to be perfect, right? It's just understanding that, like, that is the journey. It's like we're all on a health journey. If you're not on a health journey, you're wasting your time here.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah, there's a book that I started. It's a very long book, so I haven't got through it. But the book's called Outlive, and the gist of it is basically reverse engineering your aging. So if at the age of 70 you want to be able to travel around Europe by rail and be able to put a 20-kilo suitcase in an overhead locker, then at 50 you need to be able to do overhead a lot more than that.
I love that analogy. Yeah.
If you can barely walk 5 kilometres at 50, then you're not going to be able to walk briskly enough to get around a train station at 70. So I kind of like that. Hey, home stretch now. You're doing great, by the way. How's this been? Is it all right?
Bloody good, mate.
Yeah. Okay.
They're kind of like, you know, like you asking me that question just pinged something in my brain, and it's like, I'm not saying this is, but we talked about earlier on the podcast that we're all very similar. We all have the same insecurities. We all have the same worries, the same fears. And I have people come in, example is I have people come in and talk on our workshop, and these are people that are operating at a very high level in what they do. And afterwards they come up to me and they say to me, was that all right? You know, how did that go? Do you think and you can see the level of that whole thing around the insecurity and the fear of failure, or the fear of what other people might think. And it's I don't know why I brought that up, but when you asked me, is this going good?
I know. I have that with the podcast. I've done like 220 episodes now. I have some people, like high performers, that'll message me the week it comes out saying, how have the numbers been? How have the downloads? What episodes have gone better? And it's a real, it's been a fascinating insight for me. Just how these people want everything to do well, or I don't know if it's a micromanagement thing or an insecurity thing or what it is, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, I think it comes back to those 3 fears: fear of failure, fear of letting people down, fear of what other people might think. Yeah. And even coming onto this podcast, everyone that comes on your podcast will have some level of feeling and emotion, whether that's excitement or stress and anxiety, or a bit of overwhelm, or fuck, I'm going on Dom Harvey's podcast, what if I fuck it up? And everyone that comes in here has that. And it comes back to that thing that sometimes we can't see it. I could have been incredibly anxious coming in here today, but I would have just masked it. And that draws back around to, like, just, you don't know, just be kind to you.
100%. What are your best and worst habits?
My best habit, I think, is what is my best and worst habit? My best habit, I think, is that I am very determined. I care deeply about other people. I love, I just love life. I think that's like, I love what I'm doing. I love life. And that's, it's not obviously without its challenges. I love going through it. Now I even like going through adversity because I know there's a clear, I'm going to come out the other end more resilient. What was the other?
Your best and worst habits.
My worst habit is probably and I've had to really put my thumb on this one the last couple of years, but I procrastinate.
And so common, right?
Yep. I procrastinate and I know why I do it.
Was it fear?
So I used to think that was just, I'm just a procrastinator, right? I procrastinate because, and a little bit of self-sabotage. And the reason for it, especially in my business, is like, right, if we get to this level, there's a chance it's going to fail. You're really putting yourself out there, right? And so there's certain things that my business management will get me to do, and I just won't do them. And it's been like a little bit of an issue the last couple of years. And you're a procrastinator and you're putting this stuff off and you're self-sabotaging some of the stuff. Why? Fear of failure. I'm not even afraid to talk about it, man. I don't care about any of this stuff anymore, like when talking about this stuff, because it's just the reality. But if I have the self-awareness to say that's why I'm procrastinating, well, now I can change it.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's important that like we can talk about any of this stuff. Like I'm not afraid. Obviously, there's certain things I hold back from talking about, which was come up in this podcast.
Oh, I respect that too.
I'm not afraid to talk about my insecurities and my weaknesses, and there's lots of other men. I have lots of other weaknesses and things that I've got to work on. But procrastinating's been a big one for me, and because I've identified the why, now I can start creating the change around it.
When was the last time you cried?
The last time I cried was in probably in the workshop, not in front of everyone, listening to Jamal's talk. And there's this bit at the end of his talk where he works with these young kids that are struggling, and he gets them in nature, and he takes them through breath work, gets them up into the ngahere, and there's this part in this video that he plays, and it's got these kids walking along the sand in their bare feet, and then they're up in the bush, and there's a kowhai tree, and they're surrounded by the kowhai tree, and they're locked like that, and he's shooting up, and the trees are up like that. That gets me. That really hits me, man. And I sort of, so I had a few tears, and I realized I wasn't sitting there sobbing. It just was very emotional for me, and I realized, I sort of reflected on that, and I think it is because nature, going through challenging times, that's been always the constant for me, has been getting in the ocean and up into the bush. And I just have such a deep connection with that. And it's been such an important, integral part of my life. Plus seeing those kids, man, just seeing those kids struggling, and just feeling so fortunate that we are lucky to have access to the stuff, and we should be incredibly grateful, because some people, man, are really struggling out there and they don't have access to the stuff.
Did that come with a sense of pride as well, in that it's this thing that you have created?
What?
Like the kids with their arms linked around the kowhai tree. This is this workshop that you've created that they're on.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
they wouldn't have been there in that situation in that video had you not created this thing. You procrastinator.
Yeah, far out, man. I go away from the workshop and I'm just like, man, what can we do better? And we haven't done enough, or we haven't. It's the blessing and a curse of having a growth mindset, right? Yeah,
never satisfied.
You gotta sometimes I do just take a step back and I'm like, man, it's incredible what we've created here. We've created a workshop we've run hundreds and hundreds of people through our workshop, and people message us. I had a message from a guy yesterday who came on the workshop 2 years ago, and he said to me that workshop has been absolutely life-changing for him, and he came on a workshop at a time where he was really struggling. And oh man, I've had a guy come up to me at a keynote and tell me that he listened to a podcast, and if it wasn't for he basically told me that he was going to top himself, and he listened to the podcast, and he said that listening to your podcast changed everything for me. Man, that was like,
so I saving lives.
Yeah, I grabbed that guy and gave him a hug, and I don't post any, like, we get feedback from the workshop all the time, and I very rarely post it up, but that's when we get that feedback that I just kind of stop and reflect, and it's like, man, yeah, it's pretty, but that's that whole thing of like, you never make it.
There's always more to be done.
Yeah, you get to this level where you're doing all this cool stuff, and it's like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? You never make it. You never make it in life, ever. And when you think you have, that's where the wheels fall off. Yeah. And that's that whole thing of it's just a journey, man, and it's like constantly evolving. And
Well, I suppose that's where you get stagnant. Like I had Anna Mowbray on the podcast last year, like super successful businesswoman, a billionaire, set up the company Zero with her brothers.
Yeah.
And she set up a new company now, and she's involved with Auckland FC. And I said to her, why don't you just like kick back and relax and go on a couple of cushy boards, or, you know, get on the kids' school committee or something with your $1 billion? And she was like, that was just a mountain to climb, and there's plenty more mountains to climb.
Exactly.
And I thought, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, no, I've worked with people that I remember a client saying to me, he goes, you know, I the happiest I ever was, or the most content I ever was when I went from $200,000 to $300,000. This is a multi-millionaire. He goes, the more money I made, I never got happier. The less things I had, you know, the time in my life where it was the simplest and I had less things was the happiest I was, and that really resonated with me. Before we do finish, I'd like to take you through this 2-minute breathing exercise.
Oh, who said we're finishing?
Oh, sorry. Next question.
No, you're right. Okay. Your last couple, do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets? Yeah, I think everyone has regrets, man. Like, how can you not?
What are they? What are the big ones for you? Or are these things you're not ready to talk about on a podcast yet?
I'd have to think, like, what is something I regret? I regret the way I've treated some people. I definitely look back and I regret the way that I've treated people. I regret not taking some opportunities. I regret doing some things that I shouldn't have done. People like to say, like, you know, you should never regret anything in life. Of course you do.
I know. Especially like the version of you that's sitting in front of me now is probably completely different to who you were when you were 20 or 30. And I think it's okay to look back and have like toe curling moments where you think, man, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
If you don't, that means you haven't grown at all. Yeah.
Oh man, I probably regret things I did last week. And it was like,
you know how sometimes you have friends that say, oh, you've changed? I think it's a good thing, because if you're not changing, then, you know, it means you're not growing.
Yeah, you change, but then you stick to your I've always felt like I've stuck to who I really am. And that is embedded in growing up at Piha, you know, surfing, I don't know, my practical experiences of life, and I feel like I've got a deep understanding of who I am, and I will never, there's part of that is like, yeah, you want to change and you want to evolve, but there's a big part of that I'm very stubborn around, and I won't change. I'm me, and there's, yeah.
I can tell there's a definite stubborn streak in there. I can't imagine it was your partner that's been going backwards and forwards with me to set this podcast up, and I can't imagine how frustrating it'd be to be in a relationship with you.
Thanks, Tom.
No. But I've enjoyed this today. Are you proud of yourself?
Hugely proud of myself, man.
Have you always been able to say that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's ever been a moment in life where I've sat down and been like, I'm really not proud of you.
No, but I wonder, like, you know how we talk about it in school when being called a tryhard's a bad thing, and you don't want to sort of stand out. I feel like saying you're proud of yourself at that stage in life, in your 20s or whatever, like people would think, fuck, this guy's a dick.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. There's like, okay, that's one thing, but then there's the relationship you have with yourself and that constant noise up here, that constant thinking and thoughts that are coming in. And I feel like I've always been in that respect, like the relationship that I have with myself and the time I spend up here. I've never felt like, man, I don't feel like I've ever had a time where I've been like, man, I'm not proud of you. I've never had that talk with myself.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think that's a great way to end it. What's the breathing thing? So is this something that, obviously, if people are driving and listening to this, they won't be able to partake, but anyone that's listening or watching to this, can they join in?
Well, what I wanted to do was, because I think it's about, I would like to, for anyone listening to go away and be able to implement this into their busy day. Like if someone might be listening who's struggling with stress, or they may have some anxiety, or they may be having difficulty sleeping, or they may just be interested in regulating their physical and mental state. So this exercise is real easy, and the beautiful thing about this exercise, Dom, is that you don't need anything. So we can do it sitting right here. It relies on internal control. So when I say internal control, it's tapping into some of these body systems that are designed to regulate stress and pressure, and it's your breathing. Now, how this exercise will work, I want to do it for just 1 minute. So people listening, and you can do it yourself, but all you do is you start off by doing a body scan, find where you're holding tension and let it go. So if you start off in your face, you move all the way down your body, find where you're holding tension, chest, jaw, shoulders, and release it. Did you find any tension?
Everywhere, all through my face.
Yeah.
Definitely in the jawline. And
yeah. That's another whole conversation. But release that tension. And on the count of 5, you're going to get flow into your first inhale through your nose. And when you get to the top of the inhale, you're going to hold your breath, and I'll give you some other cues when you get there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale slowly, fill up space, get to the top, hold your breath. And once you hold your breath, I want you to tap out, lack of awareness of time, relax every single muscle. And you're going to continue to sit there until you feel an urge to breathe out. If you don't feel an urge, just enjoy the stillness. As soon as you feel an urge, I want you to drop it out, melt into your chair, and flow back into the next inhale hold. It's not how long you can hold your breath. It's whenever you feel like it, drop it out, literally melt into the chair. Drop it out, man. Don't control it, drop it out. Yeah. And then flow into the next inhale hold. Cool. Hold your breath, relax every single muscle. Lack of awareness of time, get rid of expectations. Bring a sense of calmness over your entire body. As soon as you feel an urge to breathe, you're going to drop it out, melt into the chair. The key's in the exhale here. Use the exhale to get real calm. 2 more cycles, Dom. Go deeper with this, man. 2 more cycles. Take your time. Imagine you're the only one in the room. And on this next breath hold, I'm just going to tell you a few of the things that are happening while you do this. The signals your body sends your brain is very important. And those signals need to be that you are in an alert, calm, and focused state. And by slowing your breathing down and focusing on prolonging the exhale, you are sending very clear signals to your brain that you're calm and you're in control. With this breathing cycle that you're doing, you're also activating the parasympathetic division of your nervous system. So that's the calming division of your nervous system. And that is because when you slow your breathing down and prolong the exhale, it stimulates something called the vagal nerve, which is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. So how did that feel, Dom? You're calm, man. Look at him. Look how calm he is.
Good. Yeah, very relaxed. That's a very easy technique, isn't it?
Yeah, and the key thing is here, man, I know where to wrap this up, but I challenge you, Dom. I challenge you for the next month. I'm going to send you this breathing flow. I'm going to send you a couple 5-minute ones. I challenge you to do it twice a day. So 2 times a day, 2 lots of 5 minutes for the next month. You will not, I could sit here and talk about all the benefits of doing this, but it's that practical experience of doing it. You will see unquantifiable changes because it's just 5 minutes, but you carry that self-awareness, that self-regulation, that calmness into the rest of your day. And then you carry that level of control where you're able to shift your state from whatever physical and mental state you're in into a calm state, you carry that into situations in life where you need more self-control. That's a powerful tool, man. And all it is your breathing and that body scan.
I think my legs stopped shaking. I think my leg's been shaking for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, so that shaking of your leg is neural tension. And
what does that mean?
It's just like if you're in the red all the time, so in that sympathetic part of your nervous system, which is not bad. It's just that you're a busy guy, you got stuff to do. That is stress, and we store that stress in our body, and that is adrenaline, and adrenaline agitates us to move, but you're sitting here, so you're going like that with your leg, and then the tension, when we go through, do the body scan, release the tension, we store stress in our muscular system, and we store this as this constant muscle contraction. This isn't just you, man, it's like me, it's a lot of people, and self-awareness is being aware of this stuff. So when you go into stress and pressure moments, you have the skill of, right, relax my body. Because if you're holding tension constantly, you are sending clear signals to your brain, fight, flight, or freeze. You're in that freeze stress state.
That 1 minute of breathing, obviously your commentary was very helpful, but even without that, like someone could do that in their car before they go into a meeting at work, or before you go on a Zoom call, or after driving home in traffic and going into reconnect with your family. Well,
you don't actually want all those cues. That was just the first time you do it, you give those cues so that when people go and do it again, then they've got those important cues. To sort of help get them into a calmer state. But hey, here's a bit of self-promotion, man. I've built a performance breathing course that's got all this stuff in it. It's got over 30 videos, and it runs right through the breathing mechanics, breathing to elicit calm. The stuff that you've just done here, there's like 10 videos in there, breathing flows, how to use the exhale to activate that calming division of your nervous system. And then there's a whole other part in there around dynamic breathing training. And yesterday I just finished filming a course in how to use the ice bath for mental skill development. It's a beautiful course, man. I am proud of that course, because that's like taking all of this knowledge and wrapping it into a course that gives people better self-awareness and self-regulation, stress control, and skills of stress and stress resilience, and uses the ice bath to test that level of control in a very stressful environment.
Well, you're doing great work, and we'll put everything in the show notes that everyone could need to know about Dave Wood, or integrated training, or the Calm Under Pressure workshops. But thanks, mate. This has been really awesome today. Really nice to connect. I can't believe we only met like 2 hours ago.
Brother.
Cheers, mate.
For sure that we'll stay in contact, man. And I thank you very much for having me on.
100%. Thanks for coming and being so open.